Hello and welcome to NatAlt Radio. I'm David Elton. Today I'd like to talk to you about Australia's decline. In particular, I'm going to talk to you about three causes of that decline. They are immigration, the breakdown of the traditional Australian family unit, and green taxes. Let's talk about immigration. Chinese, Indian, African and Muslim immigrants are heading to Australian cities like Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane at record levels. Eventually, they will become the dominant ethnic groups in those cities. Aussies living there will be reduced to a small and insignificant minority. Australia will look less and less like an Anglo-Saxon European country and more like Malaysia or Singapore, a mixture of Chinese, Indians and Malays. That's the goal of the present Labor-run government. Labor politicians are primarily left-wing baby boomers who grew up in the ethnically homogenous Australia of the 1960s and early 1970s. They thought that the old white Australia was bland and boring and wanted to change it. They wanted Australia to be a Malaysian-style republic with no trace remaining of its Anglo-Saxon and Western European heritage. They wanted a country where Chinese and Indians were the dominant ethnic group. And so far, those boomers are getting their wish. By 2049, Australia's population will have reached 35 million through Chinese and Indian immigration. No doubt the name of the country, Australia, will have to be replaced by something else, something that reflects its new Chinese and Indian ethnic identity. The appropriate name is Chindia. What we're seeing under Kevin Rudd and the Labor Party is the Chindianisation of Australia. In the long term, immigration will mean the ethnic cleansing of Australians from cities like Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. In the short term, it means water shortages, high house prices, high rents, overcrowded public transport, congested roads. 90,000 people a year are coming to Melbourne and only 30,000 new dwellings are being built. The population of Melbourne is 4 million and that's due to rise to 7 million by 2049. That's all because of the policy of unrestricted Chinese and Indian immigration. Immigration to Nationalist Alternative is the defining political issue of the present time, but there is another. That is the decline of our cities, our societies, our morals and our way of life. We Australian nationalists like to chastise certain ethnic groups for living dissolute lifestyles, for living on welfare, committing petty crimes, drug and alcohol abuse, spreading trash around their neighbourhood, begging and harassing Aussies and generally having no respect or consideration for their own group or Australia as a whole. Now, I'm not going to name which groups in particular behave like this for reasons of political correctness. You can have a guess about which ones I'm talking about. The point is, we Australian nationalists have to recognise that there are plenty of Australians who behave in exactly the same way as these ethnic groups. Australians who belong to a low socio-economic class, who have poor educational attainments, little to no participation in the labour force, have records of petty and violent crime, who have drug and alcohol problems and self-destructive lifestyles. These Australians are, in short, white trash. Why are we seeing more and more of this type of Australian? It's a complex issue and there's a number of reasons. The first is that we have a welfare system which pays low-income, working-class, unmarried Australian women to have children. That is, women are being paid to bring up fatherless children and can make a good living out of it. So what's the problem with that? The problem is that the parents are the biggest influence on the child's behaviour, and their upbringing will determine a large part of their behaviour as an adult. They will base their own attitudes to male and female relationships on that of their mothers and fathers. In the 1950s and 1960s, most children grew up in a household where the parents were married. The average Aussie father worked 5 days a week, stayed with the same woman for years, if not decades, kept out of trouble with the law and generally lead a clean lifestyle, staying away from marijuana and other drugs. Children who grew up in these households usually went on to replicate the same behaviour when they grew up. A male child, after he grew up and got married, would act like his father. A female child would expect a future husband to behave like her father. Marriage wasn't a perfect institution, but it worked. You only have to contrast that with the Australian white trash family, where the mother is the on sole parent's pension. What does this child see? It sees a mother who cynically has children so as to get the sole parent's pension. It sees a succession of fathers who drifted out of the household. Fathers who aren't faithful to one woman, don't work, who smoke bongs, who have dropped out of secondary school, always getting in trouble with the law, who stay around just long enough to impregnate the mother and then leave. Statistics show that children are more likely to be abused by their stepfathers than anyone else. What we have created is a toxic situation, toxic households. Children will go on to replicate the behaviour of their parents in these households. The females will grow up and become irresponsible welfare mothers, the males deadbeat dads and petty offenders. That makes Australian culture and Australian living more sordid than it has to be. It also places a burden on the government welfare system. We have at present at least 700,000 Australians collecting the sole parents pension. I wish I could say that most of the recipients were immigrants, but the truth is most of them are Aussies.